Hello, my loves. Thank you so much for everyone here who's liking, subscribing, commenting and sharing my channel. It means the world to me. It's a place where we rapidly and radically heal from narcissistic abuse cycles, trauma, PTSD, things like that, coming into our sovereignty and our authentic power to create our most fulfilling lives from now on, right? Our best lives now that we can, right? And, there's a lot of things that are very misunderstood about narcissistic abuse, and there are some reasons why therapy is, and because they're misunderstood, right? So people aren't understanding what it really is and how to really heal it, which is what I've got a lot of trainings and stuff and tools on here to help you heal much faster from things like PTSD, which is misunderstood, the emotional psychological abuse symptoms. But until you understand the truth of narcissism, it's very difficult for a therapist, if they're not aware of that, to counsel you. Because what you would want in most relationships is resolution and fairness, right? Is some kind of beautiful closure, or as beautiful as it can be, where people are kind of at peace. Because for soul-attached humans, unlike narcissists, things will plague us, will stay on our minds for a long time. And so although closure really is a personal thing in terms of we have to detach, and all the tools I teach you here help you do that, and my program Sovereign is extraordinary for that, right? But it's a personal thing. It can't be reliant on another. It's very helpful and very healing a lot of the time for people to come to some kind of agreement, even if it's an agreement to disagree. But with a narcissist, their vision, their goal is not harmony, resolution and peace. It's constant chaos. And to be able to keep you in some kind of trauma bond so that they can siphon your energy. So they don't want the same things. If you're being counseled to make amends and be reasonable and make allowances, unfortunately, all that does when you are dealing with a narcissist is allow you to be further exploited. So I teach people radical personal power, sovereignty, divine, getting in touch with their intuition, their spirituality, and the divine truth behind this, so that you are supported, guided, in touch with yourself on all levels, on your multidimensional levels, so that you can be a very strong person in these situations, not just by willpower, but because you are not able to be taken away from your truth, the truth, and you're not trying to use strategies that would work on people who are not narcissists, where those strategies do not work here, right? We have to use a very specific approach. I deal with a lot of people going through the court systems with the narcissist, a lot of people in divorce and settlements, that kind of thing. And there's a particular way to deal with it, and you have to use this particular strategies for it. We don't have to, but there's some very effective ones, which I talk about a lot on here, and there's co-parenting videos, and I do talk about it, and I can do more on that if you'd like it, so just comment. So look, I'm calling this video, do not fall for these guilt trips, for the way the narcissist guilt trips you, right? The narcissist distorts everything. Before I get into it, so the guilt trips are a disaster and they're inappropriate. But if you think about it, the narcissist does terrible things to their targets, and you are targeted. It's not just because of your childhood wounds. It's not just because you're insecure. Strong, secure attachment styles can be brought into anxious and if you know about attachment styles, people who would be considered independent, secure attachment style can be taken into anxious and avoidant attachment styles after narcissistic abuse. They will target anyone they choose to, right? Yes, there are certain people who are more vulnerable to it, given general insecurities. But, there's no one not many people on the planet that aren't with childhood wounds and some insecurities. So it's not a recipe for this. They are predators, right? And that's what you've got to know above all, because so many people are spending so much time trying to fix themselves rather than seeing the absolute truth, which is this is a dangerous predator. And actually, even if you were, without those things, if they wanted to go for you, they would go for you. And it's very hard for anyone with empathy and compassion, at depending on the level of narcissist, to be under this type of manipulation and not be completely broken down, which is what they want. They want you to be completely shelled out from your authenticity, from your values, from your boundaries and standards. So you're just a shadow of yourself so they can make you into what they need you to be, right? So everything they do, if you really think about it, one, you're getting inappropriate, not because you're wrong, just because like your body, because it's in a trauma state, is having like, you know, the Stockholm syndrome, extreme reactions to them that are not your true authentic emotions. Even the physical attraction, they can control your sexual energy, like they work in the psychic field. So a lot of what you feel for them is not actually your authentic reaction, right? It's not. And trauma gives you the Stockholm syndrome, makes you very dependent or codependent on them, because biologically you're being messed with as well as psychologically. And so like they do terrible things and we feel the shame. Don't you think that's ironic? Because shame should be, I'm ashamed of myself. I've done something that is really something I'm ashamed of. But we feel the shame for their actions. They project what they want you to feel. They are masters of illusion. We feel the guilt. We feel what they should be feeling, and they don't feel any of it because they're projecting all of that onto you. Very low level emotions. And so with the guilt trip, because they take no accountability and responsibility, if you ever try and make them accountable or responsible, the guilt trips will come in. You'll end up feeling guilty in some way, yeah? You might mention that they've crossed a boundary, or maybe they've always been trying to evade boundaries. So it could be, you know, something with, you know, someone that they're flirting with. It could be, you know, something that you've asked them not to do, a way they talk to the kids. It could be contractually if you're in business with them. It could be anything. But like, however they do it, they're very unlikely to take radical responsibility and say, yeah, I crossed the line, let me make that right. It's totally on me, right? Which is what is the truth in these cases. You know, whenever you, and again, they train you into somehow guilt tripping you. Look, it's a really bad time for me. You know I'm not feeling well. Okay, I wasn't thinking straight. You should have more compassion. You should, you know what I mean? It becomes a guilt trip on you. So what happens over time, more and more and more, my parents did this to me my whole life, is like you take responsibility for everything they're feeling. Yeah, totally inappropriately, and anything that they're not, like any needs you have, you will never ever share, or very limited ones, your true needs and desires, because like everything's about them and you've already been trained, right, to feel guilty and ashamed of anything you need and want, especially because it will not be met very well with them, which is again, like you think about it, often on birthdays, anniversaries, special events, Christmas, they always act out, right, but there'll be some often guilt trip on you. There'll be a guilt trip on you for reactive abuse, which is when someone antagonizes you so much and you react back. Maybe you act out. Maybe you do something out of character because they've tormented you for so long, right? Now, all of the attention will be on your reaction, not what caused it. So they're all the time planting these seeds so that you take responsibility for not just your behavior, theirs as well. It's always your fault, yeah? On some level, and the guilt tripping is going on constantly. So if you do, like, you won't see it objectively. It will be like, because again, I remember like, gosh, for me, it was so hard for me to act out of character. But if I was really pushed, I remember I said a couple of things and they really played on my mind. They really hurt me that I would say something like that. It wasn't anything like, I mean, it's a minuscule thing of what the narcissist did, but like, it took me out of myself and I felt very bad about it. They love taking you out of yourself. So therefore I felt guilt and shame for that, right? And then I was more concerned about what I said than what they did. And this happens, I've heard, you know, people get in physical fights, all sorts of things goes on, because it's very impossible for a human being to be antagonized for that amount of time without buying back. You've got to be really strong. And I had years of personal development. So like I was a warrior and I was still completely annihilated. By 2 narcissistic relationships, I was on my knees, PTSD, completely broken, emotionally, affected my career, my finances, everything. So like, you know, it's not about you being weak. It's about dealing with someone who's so manipulative that a lot of the resources, if they're not people who are educated in this specifically, they're going to give you strategies that are not appropriate with narcissists and going to lead to your further exploitation. And you've been conditioned now, right, to have your confidence eroded, have your independence eroded, right? You've been completely manipulated and conditioned to such a high level. And this feeling of responsibility, this over-responsibility for their emotions. So you're on eggshells all the time, trying to check how they feel, make sure they feel okay, completely out of yourself. Not even thinking about how you feel, which is your job on this planet. And of course, if you're not in touch with yourself, you can't be in touch with your intuition and truth, right? And that's how God speaks to you through your intuition, right? That's how you find, like, you have to get regulated and grounded into that. But I mean, this is just such an important point. So know that the shame and guilt you feel in these situations is often a lot of it being projected on you. Often, actually, even the attraction you feel for them, it's all a trauma response. The whole relationship is a red flag. And I mean, people say, look for the red flags. I mean, in narcissistic relationships, it is only red flags, you know, pretty much, when you understand what that is. We get conditioned to let these things go, and I'm going to teach you so many things about healthy relationships, boundaries, standards, because it's so easy to get into very bad cycles after narcissistic abuse, but maybe not with narcissists, but you know, toxic dynamics, because we've been so conditioned, you know, to have very poor standards in relationships, right? To be very afraid of being authentic. Authentic isn't just being yourself. It's, in my definition anyway, I've got my own body of work on this, but you know, it's being true to what you want and need, and we have to have the confidence to do that, because that helps us also manifest our best lives. So please look at this, where you are being guilt tripped, right? Where you've asked for something, where you know they've crossed the line. Sometimes it's good to journal on these things. Look at how you'll get met with an emotional backlash from them, rather than them taking responsibility for what they actually did, which is the appropriate response. And I want you to start not being available for that, and you have to do it. I'm not saying to fight them or put yourself in a difficult situation if it's dangerous for you, not at all. But, you know, watch other videos on things you can do. But what I do want you to do is not take it on. I want you to imagine yourself giving it back. Recognize it for what it is. That shame's not mine. That guilt's not mine. I give it back. Return to sender. You could do that in the energy field. Return to sender. It's not for you to take on. We're wearing emotions. We're taking on things that are not ours. Give them back. You can just intend that now with me here, if you like. Anything that is not mine, I now give back. Anything that's been projected on me that's not my true emotional state, not my true feelings, not my truth, I give it back. Yeah? You can just intend to do that. But each time I've been teaching you about this pause moment, start thinking, start being conscious of like, what's actually going on here? And am I being manipulated into feeling something, or should I be feeling guilty? You don't need to feel guilty when someone crosses a boundary that they're fully aware of. Yeah, no matter what kind of day they're having, no matter what's going on there in your life, because you get trained to, like, what's going on with them becomes more important than anything to do with you. What you matter. Your life matters. You're as important, and it's irrelevant what's going on in their life to some extent to the conversation, because they'll always try and gaslight you and take you off topic to the conversation that you are having, which is that this is not what we agreed in our relationship, right? You've crossed the line. This is what I'd like you to do about it. Or this is what... The best thing to know in these situations, which I teach you all the time, is outcome focus, which is like, you've got to really take a pause, think about things, because there's no point just having a row, especially with a narcissist. You've got to get clear on what you want. And then with a narcissist, you do need a strategy about how you're going to do it, because you cannot just sit there and expect them to reasonably... want the best. You know, in healthy relationships, you could have a coffee with someone and say, you know what, we've had a great time, but this isn't working for me anymore. These things I just don't see us building beyond them, and I think we should, you know, part ways. But, you know, you would have that kind of conversation. But with a narcissist, you can't. It's a battle. It's a war. And you'll lose. You'll lose, because you'll never be cruel enough. You'll never be able to You'll lose if you go to battle on it most of the time, just because they have no boundaries and no limits to how far they'll go. They don't want the same thing as you. So we have to learn, yes, the grey rock, but actually to start getting very clear, very definite about what we do want. I get people out of all sorts of sticky situations, but I know how to move the energetics and I know how to get them into their truth, and then we do what we need to do. That's not asking permission from the narcissist. It's literally acting in accordance with their desires. And honestly, the narcissist will change when you change your power and sovereignty. So if you want to join Sovereign, by the way, the payment plan and you can get your spot now. I'm going to open the doors 1st of May for the warm-up, and then we'll go on from there. It's a fantastic container. The container we're in right now is amazing. I'm looking forward to the next one too. So let me know about that. I'll put it in the comments. Oh, drop me an emoji if you know what I'm talking about with these guilt trips. Share your stories, because I think people need to see this. See it in writing will help you share stories and really see it for yourself. So do drop emojis and stories about this, because I think it's important. Lots of love, guys. I'll speak to you soon.